The performing arts, the entertainment industry, show business. Whatever you choose to call it, to me, it seems like a rather strange way to spend a finite amount of time that we call life. I mean, think about it. All the stress and nerves and anxiety of trying to get that dream role or job. An artist will hear the word no so many more times than the word yes. Sometimes it really takes its toll on your emotional, mental, and physical health. But so many of us want to do this. Many of us already are, and I need to know why. Hi, I'm Amy Coots, and I'm an actor, hypnotherapist, and the founder of Acting with Courage Hypnotherapy. And in this series, I will be interviewing some fantastic actors, writers, directors, producers, anyone involved in the creative arts. And I will be asking them how and why they got into their respective careers and the advice that they offer to other creatives to look after their mental health and well-being. Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining today. Today's guest possibly could be considered, well, I don't know, a bit of a rebel who has chosen to bypass what he deems to be an outdated hierarchical industry, which I think many could agree with. He has preferred not to wait around for an agent for that call, that right opportunity to come his way, nor does he feel the need to impress the important people. Instead, he has chosen to take control of his own destiny and forge his own path. He is an actor who does one-person plays. He mostly tours the UK. Hello, David William Bryan. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good, thank you. So, David, why one-person plays?
Well, I did the traditional actor thing for a good 5 years after drama school, and ended up doing sort of a bit of everything, and didn't really get any particularly exciting opportunities. No one was particularly interested in what I was doing, and I think it was a mix of me not really knowing my place, but also just not being that great at most things.
Okay.
And so when I was randomly asked to do a one-person play by someone that had written one, I reckon probably about 10 minutes into the first show, I was like, this is the thing.
Great.
It just suits all my strengths, and all my weaknesses are just sort of redundant, and that was it. I just knew it was like coming home, you know?
Yeah, it's funny you say the coming home thing, because I don't do one-person plays. I do a lot of regular theatre, but I understand that feeling of feeling like you're back home. And for me, I don't know whether it's the same with you, but whenever I've done camera work, there's just something about it that
Doesn't work, man.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
I'm with you on that.
I think the hard thing is admitting that, because we
Yes.
all want to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of being like the next Tom Hanks or whatever, but like I'm just not.
Sure.
Why try and like fool someone into believing that? You know what I mean? You just got to have that moment of like, let's just get really, really like honest with ourselves here.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, you've got to do it enough to know. Because the thing is, you shouldn't make the mistake. You might do it once and suck, and then actually, if you hammer away at it, you get really good. But I've done a bunch of stuff on camera, and like I've done like decent projects on camera, but I can see it. You know, I just know. And it's not even that I'm bad at it. Like I'm fine. Like if I was in a program or film, which I've been, like you wouldn't question me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
But it's more about what am I really good at? Like what do I do where it's like the response is ridiculous when I do it. That's like, for me, it was like any reel or like clip or thing I ever sent to anyone, they were like,
Yeah. No, I totally hear where you're coming from. And I had this conversation with a friend of mine in LA who I interviewed recently. And we talked about that very thing of going, it's okay to say, hey, maybe I'm not that great on screen, but I'm awesome at theatre, or vice versa, or whatever it might be, you know?
It's a different thing.
Yeah, it is a
Like,
different thing.
my energy, I'm playing massive venues now, right?
Mm,
And it's not a problem because I just like I'm just like I'm just there's so much. You pull out on camera and it's like it's too much.
absolutely.
I find
Yeah.
myself the battle is compressing myself, and when I compress myself, I lose what's unique about me.
It's so ridiculous you're saying all this in the best possible way, because that was the issue I always had back home was, Amy, you're too big, you're too big. And it's like, but I don't want to, I want to be able to kind of have that
Yeah,
freedom. And
my style of acting is partly because of where I learned. I think is very like theatrically bold, and that you doesn't work on a camera.
no, it doesn't.
The camera's just observing you, and anything that isn't real life looks bad, basically.
So you, just to go back a little bit to where you started before you got to your epiphany about one person plays, you trained in New York, is that correct?
Yeah, so I trained at the Stella Adler Studio in New York.
And that's obviously a conservatory program.
Yeah, so I went over there. I'd never acted before, and I was really just looking for something that I might like to do in life.
Sure.
And I decided to do a summer course of acting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd lived in London previously and really not liked it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'll have more of an adventure. And I looked up the schools in New York, and I went through a load of YouTube videos, watching, clips of classes from the different ones.
Mm.
As soon as I stumbled across Stella Adler, there was a video of her ripping some kid apart, doing a Hamlet monologue. Everything she was saying made total sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't the case with like the other videos I'd made, and so I just felt instinctively like a really good fit. And then I sort of got what I thought was a headshot, and applied for this summer course, and they rang me and had a chat, and I went over there, and turns out acting is not what I assumed it was at all.
Mm.
This thing which was way more interesting. And then, cut a long story short, I ended up doing the 3-year full-time conservatory after that.
The reason I asked that is because I don't come from that sort of drama background. I've done courses and I've trained a lot in Meisner and that sort of thing. But I imagine there must be an element, and I think you touched on this when you talked at Surviving Actors, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's an annual event that happens in London. There must be, I don't know, you're kind of in this, you could probably explain it better, like cocoon where you're sort of built up and you feel like, yeah, I'm amazing and I'm talented. And then you come out of that, there must be something. Can you talk a bit about that feeling of coming out of it and feeling, I imagine you come out and you take on the world, but then it sort of doesn't happen.
Yeah. So it was weird for me, because the last thing that happened to me, it was really full circle actually, because the last thing I did at drama school, having the first time I ever saw anything to do with acting in Stella Adler, was Stella Adler ripping this kid apart, doing this Hamlet monologue. And then to go completely full circle, the last show I ever did was play Hamlet at Stella.
Wow.
So I came out of there. It wasn't like they built you up to think, oh, you're gonna like crush it or whatever. You are in a bubble, and when you play that role and it goes really well, and everyone's just telling you you're great, and then you come out, and then you're just met with absolute, like, no one gives a shit about you. It's just a real sort of, it's just a shock. Like, it's just such a change so quick. After a few months of that, I just started to spiral down into like depression and anxiety and stuff. And it's just, you try and find the logic in it at first. I think you just think, I don't understand this. Why is nobody even replying to an email? Like, is my computer broken? Like, what is happening? Because you just don't know that much about the industry or how it works. And I think you have a somewhat idealistic view of the industry before you like actually get thrown into it. And so over time, it sort of grinds you down. And all I wanted to do was just act. Like, that's
like
it.
Most people, right?
But, it just couldn't figure it out. You know what I mean? I considered it something I needed to figure out. I just couldn't. it was a bizarre time. It was like 9 months to a year of just getting worse and worse. I was in a terrible state. Like, you couldn't even talk to me. And then obviously I couldn't like do acting because I was like a mess. You know what I mean? That contrast is just like, it was heightened for me, because if you train in England and then you go into the industry in England, there's like 25 of you could ring up or like make work with, because I'd not acted before I went. And then when I got back, I literally had no real CV, and I didn't know a single actor. So I literally, there was not a single person to like even talk to about what I was trying to do, you know? So it was an extreme version.
So with that time when you were, you know, feeling down and depressed and so utterly confused, what was it that got you out of that? Was it the coming across the one person play that you did, or was it something else?
No. That wasn't years. It was years until, to be honest, I don't think I was fully out of that until about 2 years ago. So I managed to claw my way into a play, and I managed to get like an agent, and the first thing I got sent to was a commercial, and I got that, and I did a bunch of commercials and a load of fringe plays and all the sort of standard stuff you do when you come out. But that feeling of like feeling like I was sort of behind, or just not being artistically fulfilled, or just feeling down, like, was there the whole time. Like, it was just less than that really bad time. And there was just a distinctive switch sort of about 2 years ago where I could see the world changing. And I just, for the longest time, couldn't put the pieces together. Like, I could feel the system we were working in was completely like flawed, and that for some reason this social media thing was like important, but I couldn't figure out, like, I was using it and I was like, this is big, but I was like, I couldn't figure out how to fit it all together. And then everything, it was just sort of this perfect storm of like, you know, being asked to do the one person play, and then realizing that I could just go straight to people instead of through all these people who were like, I need their permission, and how social media, I could use social media to do that. And it was just, I don't know, it all just sort of aligned, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I've never been happier than I am now. Like, everything, like, it's so funny because I just don't need anyone, like anyone. So it's like, I just don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, in a good way. Like,
for sure.
I literally don't invite anyone to my shows. I don't, you know, like, I don't use Spotlight. I don't do anything of like what you should do. And it's going amazing, purely because I'm just approaching it the problem was for me is that I didn't have an example of this.
Sure. Yeah.
I had no one to go, oh, I'll do what that guy does. I've just had to sort of trial and error, like, my way of doing it. And that's why I'm so keen to like share it with other people, because you can just do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's required a lot of blood, sweat and tears on your part to like get where you've gotten to. But I think you mentioned, again, I've been a tiny bit of a Twitter stalker. So.
Do it. That'll help me. Like,
yeah.
The thing about Twitter as well is like, I do a thing, but I have to summarize it into like something that doesn't fully explain what I mean a lot of the time.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting what you're saying about social media, and I've tried to get better in my own practice of using it, but it's being really succinct. Like, it forces you to be really succinct about what you're trying to present, and it's not easy at times either, particularly when you've got a video or you've got to cut it into to their format. But I think it really is changing things. I think you're absolutely right. And I think you were talking in one of your videos that you put up about the fact that there's kind of this anger, and I got to say it's the same back home, is that with reality TV stars and influencers and stuff getting roles. You mentioned that, you know, it sort of infuriates actors. And I remember having this conversation with a friend who was quite angry about that. And originally I would have gotten angry, but I sort of went to him, well, actually, you got to kind of play the game in a sense. You can't hate the players. You kind of got to get into the game and go, well, actually, why couldn't you kind of do that too? Put out to people, get a bit of a following, and then you've got the talent to act, and you've got people interested in your product, which is obviously what you seem to be reasonably good at from what I can see.
I think it's about what that concept represents, and it represents the power moving to the artist, which is the best thing to ever happen to us. The one problem with that is that you have to accept, if you're going to embrace that as a concept, you have to embrace the fact that being an actor in 2019 is different now. And this is the problem with a lot of things as well. If you're looking at examples of people that have made it in whatever field you're in, you can't. Because if you look back at the people who've made it, they made it in a different time under different conditions.
Absolutely.
And what actors do is they look at people who've made it through this system and they go, oh, well, I'll do that. You can't, mate.
No.
It's different now. Rules are different. So then the problem is, well, how do you do it now? And there's no examples.
No, you're right. You're right.
So that's why I'm keen to be an example to people, because the thought of anybody coming out of drama school now, through what I went through, is just so like I can't deal with it. You know?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Anything I can do, I'll do it.
Yeah, and that's very kind. And I think you mentioned as well that you're trying to run a business with kindness, or through kindness was what you said, is 100%. Giving back to people. And
there's so many reasons to do it like that, and none to not do it like that. If someone would have just sat me down back then, like if I could get in a time machine and go back and speak to myself for 5 minutes, I would have saved myself literally years of pain and anguish.
Yeah.
So when I get the opportunity to speak to someone who I can see is going through it, I can just make a difference in their head like that. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Just from like, and the other thing is, I'm very, very careful. The reason I feel so relaxed about giving advice is that I only talk about the stuff I've proved to work. So I don't talk about like, believe it and you can achieve it and all this or wafty stuff that doesn't mean anything. And I don't talk about a broad range of stuff. I talk about, this is how you sell out your Edinburgh show.
Yeah.
Because I sell out my Edinburgh shows. Like, this is how you do this, because I've done it. Like, that's why I'm like, I get very little criticism and hate on social media, because it's watertight.
So in essence, you preach what you practice.
Yeah, that's what another issue in the industry is, that what happens is with a lot of people is they try and go down the path of being an actor or a director or whatever. They don't get enough work to survive, and then they turn on their peers to make money because they know that the people in our space are so hungry. So they exploit them, right? And then they become somebody who's teaching something that they're not a practitioner. I understand that every teacher, you can be a great teacher and not be a practitioner. Like,
or not be the best practitioner, let's say. You're a better teacher of the thing. Yeah.
But logically for me, like, if I want to know how to like do something amazingly, I'm going to find the person who does it amazingly every day. Like, that's just undisputable. But in our industry, it's like, you look up the people running these workshops and it's like, they haven't worked for years. It's like, well, why are you paying them £75 to tell you what's not working for them? First and foremost, I'm a practitioner. Like, I'm out there doing it every single day, relentlessly. You know, so I feel like I'm in a very like strong position to talk about the things that I know about and nothing else.
And you're absolutely right. And I very much think about that too. Anytime I try to post something, I go, well, okay, where is this coming from? Do I have the backup to be able to say this? And I think we are living in an age as well where people are craving that, right? People are going, come on, what are you about? And you can get absolutely hammered by people on social media, because it can be a very cruel space as well. But if
Mate,
you've
I
got
don't
the
get anything.
evidence,
I don't get
yeah,
anything.
because what you're selling is the truth of your life.
It's literally like, I've just sold out 30 shows in a row. This is what I did.
Fabulous.
I don't talk about like politics. I don't talk about like issues.
Yep.
I'm literally like, here's the value I can provide. This is what I've achieved. Take what you will.
So just getting back to your shows, could you talk a little bit about the process that you go through to develop a show? Is it the same every time, or is it a little bit different depending on the subject matter?
It's a little bit different because like the current one is like a true story, whereas the new one and the one before that were fictional. So obviously there's differences in like researching or just creating. I'm very practical. I simplify a task that can be very overwhelming on first appearance. So what I mean by that is, like, I know that a one-person play that's an hour long is approximately 20 sides of A4 with if you're using little to no stage directions, right?
Okay.
So I literally boil the story down to like 5 things that happen, bam, 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 bam. And then I know I've got 4 sides of A4 on each bit.
Right.
And then I just write from A to B, from B to C, C to D. And I make sure that the beginning of the character, I start by hammering home the flaw of the character. Usually, literally, I say the flaw of the character in the first line of the play.
Okay.
Like, not that anybody knows that that's what's happening. And then I spend an hour going on that journey to, you can literally boil like one of my shows down of, you know, it's a cowardly boy becoming a brave man. I simplify it so much for myself. When you sit down to write 4 sides of A4 and you know you have to get from this point to this point, it's much easier than sitting and writing a play. I allow myself, because I work in an empty space with no props, no set, I just write in whatever I want. If I want to write in 1,000 people storming at me with axes, or if I want to write in a motorbike chase, or write whatever I want, and then I figure it out later. Because what we do is we put all these barriers in front of ourselves.
We do.
Like, oh man, I've got to write a play. Like, no, let's just make this a lot simpler, you know? Oh, I can't write that in because how are we ever going to do it on stage? No, like, write it in. If you're good at your craft, you can make literally anything work. I'm easy breezy, you know, and I get it done. And then I'm brutal in terms of, if it's not working, I'll tweak, I'll mold, drop this bit. That needs to be, you know, I'm willing to throw something out I've worked on for crazy amounts of time. And then it's, you know, this current one, I'm on, I think, the 75th performance, and I'm still chipping away at it every single time.
Right.
Because if there's like 2,000, you know, individual moments, it takes a long time to figure out the most, you know, effective way of doing each one.
Sure. It's
like this puzzle, and then if you change that one, then that one's different. It's this infinite, so it never gets boring.
I'm just curious. I mean, obviously, I'm seeing your eyes light up as you think about these one-person shows that you create. But do you ever feel like, oh, I'd like to have someone else to bounce off again? Never.
Absolutely not. The thought of acting with other people, I'm just like, there's a couple of reasons for that.
Okay.
One is that my weaknesses definitely affect other actors, which I don't like. So,
would you mind elaborate? Are you okay to elaborate what you think those weaknesses are?
Of course. So I never get my lines right.
Never? You sure never? Right.
Literally never. Like, I'll never do a show bang on, because it's the way I naturally operate, and it's what keeps it alive. I hate it when anyone else has the attention. So I have a colossal ego, right? And when I used to be in plays with other people, I'd want it to be all about me, right? So now I'm using my ego for good. rather than evil.
You know what? That honesty is very refreshing, because a lot of people would try and deny they have any kind of ego. But the fact you've gone, you know what? My ego is just too big,
You
is
know what?
that honesty is fantastic. And that's
You
what
know
we need
what?
more of.
It's improved since I've been doing the one person shows. It's improved my life, because my ego used to creep into all sorts of stuff, and now it's, you know, it's I use it on stage. Like, that's
Right.
the
You're
time
feeding it in a way that
that's
makes
the
sense.
time to indulge it. And I don't mean I'm on stage being like, aren't I great?
Of course.
It's that ego provides me with the absolute 100%, never ever doubt it belief that all of you should watch me for an hour, right?
Which you need to have, don't you? You absolutely need to have that.
At the same time, there's a sweet spot, right, where that meets absolute humility, to realize that I don't mean fucking anything, and I'm purely a vehicle to tell this story for you, and you are always the priority. I will look after you. I will leave everything on stage for you. That sense of standing on that stage and having like 1,000 people look at me, I'm like, yeah, you know what I mean? And
I do. Yeah.
and that's just what's in me as a person.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what used to probably hinder my progress as an actor, of like, oh, I don't want to look, and I don't know, maybe that's an Australian thing, because we have what's called a tall poppy syndrome. So I don't know if you know much about that. But tall poppy syndrome is this concept of, we like when our successful people achieve some sort of success, but we don't want them to be too successful, to be too much bigger than us. And I mean, it's changing a lot, but it is sort of inherent in how I probably grew up.
That sounds just like human nature, to be honest.
Possibly, but we like to have this national thing that we kind of own, for better or for worse. So I think that idea of being, I don't want to be too arrogant or too egotistical, is in essence a bit harmful, because like you said, if you can find that balance of, I channel that into doing exceptional work that people go, wow, you got to go see David, he's incredible. That's what you want, because then when you're out in the real world, the David that presents in the real world seems like a really nice, humble guy.
I don't feel any need to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I know, I know that I do this one thing really well.
Yeah.
And that's enough for the ego that exists in me.
I don't know. I feel like we've become a bit more fragmented, because we're living in this world of abundant choice. And I think that's tripping a lot of young people up, because they're like, I've got to be this, 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 and this, and multi-hyphenate thinking. And we've got to do all these different things and sort of be a master of none of them.
Yeah, it's the opposite, man.
It is the opposite.
In a hyper congested market.
Yes.
You do one thing
really well.
Everyone else.
It's that thing of niching, really. Like, you've essentially niched yourself.
It's a shame that the word niche suggests something small, because what people don't realize, they think, oh, niche, like that's not, I can't make a career off that. But the game for me now is not, I know what I'm doing, I know how I do it. It's a scaling issue. How do I go from 40 seats to 200 to 1,000?
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing now.
By delivering the same product, but just trying to.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm going to get better and better at my craft, because I do it so much. Then it's just like making the smart choices of like, right, well, like, for example, right now, I'm in a situation where I'm going back to Edinburgh and I'm doing a big commercial show, but I'm also doing like a little tiny niche edgy show, because my new show has to be created in relation to the last one, in terms of what the best strategy is for me to scale. You have to just be really smart and not get ahead of yourself and play the long game and prioritize. So what I've done intentionally for Edinburgh is I've moved the hit show from last year to a venue much bigger, right? And then the new show I've put in a venue so small that no one's going to be able to get a ticket, right? Because the value of that hype of like, if you don't book, you're just not going to be able to see his new show is like super valuable to me.
Yes.
And also,
that's clever.
I've banned all reviewers from my new show because it's going to sell out. The entire run is going to sell out before I even get to Edinburgh. We sold out last year, and so I doubled capacity for this year, and it's selling 8 times faster than last year.
Congratulations.
And the thing is, I could go into like a massive venue, but I'm just being patient and just gradually making best decisions to scale most effectively, because I've got all the time in the world, and I'll do these forever. Like, I'll be an old man doing like the old man play, you know, like as long as I'm like stay healthy and my voice works, even if I get injured, I can still sit there.
We're going to get to that point about health in a moment, and you've sort of touched on that a little bit with your experiences of being in a bit of a dark place for a while. Now, I believe you also run workshops to help other people devise their
Yes. So people ask me to do them. I've done a couple at the Actors Centre. I've just been brought into Drama Studio London. I've started doing some teaching there, things like Surviving Actors. Yeah, and I don't really plan it. I just sort of go in and see who's in front of me and what is going to be most valuable to them. But you can essentially divide the knowledge I share into 3 categories. One is how to create one-person plays. The other is sort of the mindset of everything I'm talking about in terms of like not going down the traditional route. And the third thing is just how to like dominate Edinburgh Fringe.
Simple, you know, simple often works best, you know, not overcomplicating.
8 hours on any of those, you know what I mean?
You're obviously very passionate about what you do. You're very confident in what you do. Do you ever still get moments where little bits of negative self-talk ever creep in? And if so, what do you do about it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think during the I'm going through a bit of that at the moment. Like, during the creation of a new show, I have to force myself, and you'll know this, like every time you're doing a show, you're like, how is this ever going to be ready on time? How am I ever going to learn all this? And how are we going to do all this? And like, oh no, like the days are going by so fast and all that stuff. But then that's just met with like, I've done this over and over again. And so it's like that naturally happens, but I've gotten much better at just being like, mate, it's fine. Like, you've done this, but you've done it over and over again, and every time you think this, and every time it's fine. So yeah, I've just got better at managing it.
Yeah.
In terms of like going out there in front of people, I just can't wait. The context of it is that I have 5 years. Like, the way I think about it is like, if you had a race horse like in its like pen or whatever it's called, starting gate, in its starting gate for 5 years, and then it was just like let out. Like, I feel like that, and I'll probably feel like that for years to come, because it was so long of me not being artistically fulfilled that I haven't even got started.
Oh yeah. Oh, don't worry. I know that feeling in a different way of that. Of, you know, like, yeah, that feeling like waiting for someone to like let you in the game when you know you've got the goods, the goods, and you can bring a lot to the table. But yeah, I think that's the perfect analogy, is that like you're just waiting there, raring to go. But how much time gets wasted doing that, you know?
When things go really well and like we sell out shows and we move to bigger venues and it just like gets bigger and bigger, there isn't even a side of me that's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm like, yeah, like I've been so ready for it for so long.
Yeah.
It just seems so like it's meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, everything seems to have just like locked into place, and it just seems normal to be like signing things and all that. Like, I've just been so ready for it. Yeah.
And I guess it's a thing too of it. There's a part of you, I think, anytime, I mean, I had a whole year where it was just a mess and nothing was going right with my acting, but there's something in you that stops you from quitting, because you obviously still feel like you have something. There's something for you, and when you find it, you know that it was the right thing not to quit. Whereas so many people just go, can't do it, you know.
Well, the funniest thing is, there's 2 things. One thing is, yeah, I can't quit because it's who I am.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the second thing is, I think I tried to quit. I did try to, like, I sort of did and I didn't. So there was times where I was like, right, I'm done. In those 5 years, I'm like, done, I'm quitting. And then like I go on the internet, apply for loads of jobs, no one would reply, and they'd be like, right, well, I'm back. Like they wouldn't even let me quit. Like there's nothing else.
It's like the universe going, you must be an actor, don't quit, get back in there.
It's just like, I'm not good for anything else anyway. You know what I mean? So it's not like I couldn't like quit and go and work a normal job because no one's giving me one anyway. You know what I mean?
It's interesting. I'm a big fan of Sam Rockwell, and I read an article, and he's like, "Thank God acting worked out," because he's like, "I'm useless. I got nothing else to bring."
Do you know what it is? It's like I'm very like, I've got a business brain, right? And I could do that. Like I know I could start like this business or that business. I just don't give a shit about it.
That's the key thing.
It's not a lack of ability. It's
no.
Unless it's for me. Like I can't do this with someone else's thing, and that was always a problem for me. Like when I was in a play, it was always someone else's play. When you're an actor, you're essentially in the business of trying to be an employee for anyone who will have you. And if you're not forwarding your thing, you're forwarding someone else's thing.
That's true.
And I don't want to forward someone else's thing. I want to forward my thing. And I work like all day, every day, like 17 hours a day or whatever. But it isn't work. It's so I don't have to work. Obviously, like you have to allow yourself to be like knackered or like say, oh, fuck, I'm fed up today or whatever. Like you need to allow yourself to be human. But underneath it all, it's just like, I can't believe I get to do this.
Well, I have one more thing to ask you and then we'll wrap it up. But this has been super informative, David, and I really appreciate your time. So, I mean, you've said a lot of this already, but if for anyone watching, particularly any young drama graduates, those still training, about to get out there and could possibly end up going, who wants me or what do I do?
Yeah.
What is your advice? What are your top tips for looking after your mental health and your well-being as, you know, trying to navigate all that?
I think getting your head around the fact that we're going to be working until we're very, very old is a major part of it, because I think a lot of the suffering comes from a feeling in your 20s of being behind. Because when you're in our industry, and probably others, but I can only speak for ours, when you're in our industry, you watch people in more traditional careers progressing and buying houses and having babies and all that stuff, and it creates this feeling of like, oh my God, my life's a mess. And then like later on, like when you hit 30 and like in your early 30s, you actually realize that like you're at the beginning, like I'm more at the beginning now mentally than I was when I was 25.
Yeah.
Bizarre. And you can't understand that when you're younger. So there's that. So it's like you have all the time in the world. And if you can start to wrap your head around that, then what you should do is just try everything within acting and try it enough to know whether you can get really good at it. And then once you know like where you're really, really good, like the one thing you're really, really good at, just learn how to turn it into a business. And if you can't do something, find the person to work with who can do that thing really well but can't do the thing that you can do. I genuinely believe that if you're as good as you say you are, and you can figure out how to take whatever you do to people, then it's game over. And if you're not as good as you say you are, then, you know, maybe do something else. But it's just about being happy. But having this vague notion of I want to be successful, but you've never actually thought about like what that means practically day to day. You know, like I never even asked myself that question. Like I wanted to be successful in acting, but if you'd have asked me like, well, if you were going to get up tomorrow and go and do your ideal career, like where do you actually go and what do you actually do? I'd never thought about it. I guess I just thought, oh, well, I want to do a bit of everything. And it's too vague.
Yep.
All right.
Perfect. Brilliant advice. Thank you so much for your time, David. And I wish you all the best with your show and your tour around the UK.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this. And if you'd like to see more videos in this series, please remember to subscribe to Why This.